The nation goes into panic as we see yet another mass shooting. So we'll talk a bit about what happened there and some of the reaction to that and what could be happening from this. David Shipman faces down the Senate even more, but promises that he is going to turn Hunter Biden's application over to the ATF and the FBI as well. So we'll talk just a bit about that. Facebook is now allowing you to say that COVID might be man-made and from a lab. So we'll talk a bit about what that means. And well, we've got a lot of old and chief stuff today. Biden is also set to exclude student loan forgiveness from the budget, so we'll talk a bit about what that means. It's going to be all this and more. Hey, 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 do you trust the plan yet? I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Contemporary. My name is Jay Edgar. We have got some stuff to do today once again, as always. And, it's kind of funny because for a while we were looking at this and we saw a mass shooting event every third day when there was a hard on for gun control. And, we haven't seen one for a couple weeks. You notice it all gets swept up and everything else. And we're going to talk about all this and more as we go throughout the show. It's going to be a day. But I do have my faithful producer Pepe, back by my side. I wanted to point that out to you guys because he's been gone for a little while, but he's back, ready to go, and ready to make sure everything else is going along smoothly. For whatever reason, my Instagram just kicked back out, so let's figure out what's going on there. Oh, I never started it, that's why. Haha. Well, we'll get this started and going as well, so that'll be good. But yes, before we get into any of the news, anything else going on here, and my wonderful experience with technology, I'm so great with that, as you guys can see, head on over and check out my friends over at the Freedom Scoop Media Group. You can go check out great shows such as The Generational Gap, The Daily Ignoramus, The Breakdown with Birkenhoff, The R-Rated Conservative, and The Freckles and Brit Show. The Freckles and Brit Show should be coming back next month, so you can go check them out. Pardon our dust. We will get back up and get our website back up and running here. I've got to get a couple more bios from some of our creators, so once we get that back up, get some headshots and get ready to promote, we will be ready to promote, ready to go, and ready to start up. Plus, hey, my new computer is sitting out over there, ready to go. It's not ready to go, it's ready to start being assembled. I put the power supply in and I looked at the board and I kind of got a little bit leery, but I'm going to look at a couple YouTube videos and see how it is that I go back and do that and get that all put together. But yeah, it's time. We're going to be there pretty soon. I'm looking very forward to that. So definitely come back and check that out as well. All right, let's get into finance today here, starting with the Dow. The Dow closed at 34,323.05, just slightly up, 10.59 points up after being down and up and down and up throughout the majority of the day. It actually did look like it was going to drop and be down for the day and close down, but it managed to pull off the eker right at the end. So we'll talk a bit about what's going on with that and what that means. On your Bitcoin is 239,610.60. Just can't hold that $40,000 line. It jumps ropes with that line like we did when we were kids for jump rope or heart. You guys remember that stuff? Yeah, it is jumping back and forth over that line for 40,000 like you would not believe. And well, I know that we talked about possibly $700,000 Bitcoin by the end of the year. I don't think it's going to get that far anymore. I'm still holding that it might hit 100,000 though. It might by the end of the year. It's definitely got a possibility as people lose more and more faith in the dollar, even though the Fed is trying to sit up and tell you that the dollar is the be-all, end-all. So make your own decisions. And like I say, if you want to grab some Bitcoin on sale, it's on sale right now, but this is not official financial advice. I'm not an official financial advisor. All right. No quest. He has French handlers, not Russian handlers. All right. From Gasbuddy. Madison's gas prices over the week. Costco is at $2.65 over in Madison. We've seen another one join the 265 mark over at Fleet Farm. Otherwise, we've got a handful of 268s, 273s, and just your couple of stragglers out here at 289 and 282. So, looks like they were right. Gas is going to go down for the holiday weekend. That's going to be coming up here in the near future. So, definitely looking forward to that. Oh, speaking of which, before we get into everything else, I did want to thank you guys now that we've got 8 people in here watching. I want to take some time and thank you guys. And I saved the snip-in sketch. I wanted to do this yesterday, but I completely blew my mind. I mentioned that we need to... Oh, I guess I didn't save the sketch. Never mind. Because that's the last one. That's my new computer. But I was going to point out to you guys that we are to the point. We're getting there. We're getting to the point of monetization. Over on Twitch, I need to hold 3 average viewers on Twitch for 30 days in order to get monetized over there. I've got everything else filled. I just need to get those 3 viewers average. I'm at 1.8 as of yesterday. As of the day before yesterday, I'm sorry. I'm at 1.8, which is good because when I first made the request a couple weeks ago, I was at 1.2, which means that I've got more people watching on Twitch. I've got enough people watching on Twitch that Twitch is starting to take notice, so I'm very glad for that. I actually started using Twitch as one of my monitors as well because that makes it easier to come back. So thank you guys. Thank you guys for that, and we will monetize very, very soon. Definitely. All right. That's our gas. Let's see what the investors have to say. Maybe. She's running slow. The old HP is having problems with resources. Which is fine. We're getting there. The replacement's up. You get to retire soon. All right. Dow Jones Futures, Nvidia, Williams-Sonoma, headline earnings, movers, econ data looms, Ford leading as Tesla lags. From Ed Carson. Dow Jones Futures turned higher early Thursday, while S&P 500 futures slightly lower, as President Biden reportedly will propose a $6 trillion federal budget for fiscal 2022. That is trillion with a T. On top of $1.9 trillion of COVID spending and infrastructure spending and other relief spending and surplus spending and spend. $6 trillion as a federal budget. But hey, we're going to have a budget at least. Because you know what's cool? We haven't had a budget, I don't think, since W. That's weird. W, who put the war on the credit card. We haven't had a budget since him. Otherwise, it's been omnibus, 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 omnibus. The stock market rally rose modestly Wednesday, led by techs and small caps, with leading stocks having a good session. Ford Motor broke out as it doubled down against on electric vehicles. Tesla rose but lagged Ford stock, and most EV plays, including NIO, XPeng, and Li Auto. And I've told this story before on this program, but I want to point it out again because this is what's coming down the pipes at this point. Now, my cousin and I are both big Ford fans, and we were talking about this over the winter, back in March. And I believe I told the story back then. It was back then when I went up to visit. Well, I went up to see my dad, but it was over at my cousin's place because it's a nice halfway between. But I was up there waiting for, while I was waiting for my dad to get there, I was just talking with my cousin. We were talking about Tesla and the electric vehicle market. And as far as I understand, and this might be wrong because I've never been to a Tesla factory, but as far as I know, Teslas are still handmade individually one by one, which is why there's such a back order to this. And now with Ford getting into this, and he pointed this out, and I didn't think they were going to get as heavy into it as they are, because the gas engine has been their big ticket item. But it does appear that Ford may have the capability to do this, not because they're going to be the first ones, the only ones, the best ones to do it. It's the fact that while Tesla probably makes a better electric vehicle than Ford does, and I'm not going to lie, Tesla probably makes a much better electric vehicle than Ford does, because that's their niche. That's what they started on. That's what they cut their teeth on. But what Ford can do that Tesla apparently cannot is run that shit down the assembly line like that and just start cranking those things out left and right. Forward and back, left and right. Whereas if if I'm not mistaken, and I will have to look into this at some point, Tesla still makes theirs one at a time. So they're sitting back and they're sitting behind on their orders. So Ford might be the one to take off with this by using, well, what's actually attributed to Henry Ford, the assembly line. But we will see what happens with that. Meanwhile, GameStop and AMC spiked again as meme stocks popular on Reddit are back in favor. Nvidia, Williams-Sonoma, DXC Technology, Okta, Snowflake, and Workday headlined key earnings reports after the close. Nvidia stock reversed slightly higher overnight while WSM stock rose. DXC, Okta, Snowflake, and WDay stock fell. Nvidia stock, DXC Technology, Ford, and Williams-Sonoma are on the IBD leaderboard. GameStop shot up early, nearly 16%. To 242.56 on Wednesday after leaping 16% on Tuesday. Shares are below March peak of 348.50 and the January 28th high of 428. GameStop is creating non-fungible token platform, which certainly seems appropriate for a meme-based play. GME stock is up 36% so far this week. AMC stock leapt 19% to 1956. That's just below the multi-year high of 2036 set on January 27th. AMC stock has surged 62% this week. GME stock and AMC stock fell modestly early on Thursday. On the futures, Dow futures rose 0.2% versus fair value. S&P 500 futures were slightly below break-even. NASDAQ 100 futures lost 0.3%, so your industrials are up and your techs are down. Futures improved during the morning, then got another boost on fresh Biden spending plans. Oh, so we're going to inflate our way into a good stock market. President Biden reportedly on Friday will propose a $6 trillion federal budget, rising to $8.2 trillion by 2031. Brrr. Federal deficits would exceed $1.3 trillion through the decade. At 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time, investors will get readings on weekly jobless claims and April durable goods orders. At 10 a.m. Eastern Time, April pending home sales will be released, which means we just got the weekly jobless claims dropped a couple minutes ago. Remember, overnight action in Dow futures and elsewhere doesn't necessarily translate into actual trading in the next regular stock market session. There, now that I've spent 15 minutes talking about what's on Investors Business Daily, let's grab CNBC quick and move into the big news of the day. Two Dow stocks look like buys as the Dow Jones Industrial Average celebrates 125 years, strategists say. Yep, yesterday was the 125th birthday of the Dow Jones Industrial Average. Huzzah! From Karis Lahif. The Dow Jones Industrial Average hit a major milestone. The blue chip index turned 125 years old. Of course, the Dow Jones Industrial Average looks different now than when it first was published on the Wall Street Journal on May 26th of 1896. None of the 12 original components remain, and its 30 members now include companies that were created decades later, like tech heavyweights Apple, Microsoft, Intel, and Salesforce. To mark the occasion, CNBC's Trading Nation asked two market watchers for their favorite of the bunch. Gene Sanchez, CEO of Chantico Global and chief market strategist at Lido Advisors, highlighted Microsoft as a favorite. Why? I wouldn't. And that is in spite of the fact that I'm about to put a piece of Microsoft software on a brand new motherboard and computer and hard drive. But even still, old Bill over there is in tatters, and we don't know what's going to happen to him. So no, I wouldn't trust Microsoft right now. Not as a trade. And yes, I know that he's divested himself mostly from that company, but that divorce is going to rock that fucking stock. Because nobody else knows that he's divested from the company. The most people hear Bill Gates and they think, Microsoft, vaccine, Microsoft, vaccine. This is a company that has just beat earnings, and this was a story that was already building before the pandemic. It got some extra rocket fuel during the pandemic as they built out their cloud-based offering, which is the Azure suite. Sanchez said on Wednesday Microsoft beat estimates on the top and bottom lines in its third quarter ended March and reported in late April its Azure segment reported 50% revenue growth. Now they're experiencing the recovery as PC sales pick up and their core Windows sales are also picking up. It's just hitting on every cylinder, said Sanchez. Microsoft has risen 7% this quarter, outpacing the 4% gain for the Dow. It last hit an all-time high at the end of April. From an outperformer to a laggard, Miller Tabak chief market strategist Matt Maley says Boeing has ample opportunity ahead. The stock obviously got hit even before the pandemic because of this whole problem it had with the 737 MAX, and the stock, unlike many stocks in the Dow and the overall market, that have come back to pre-pandemic levels or even higher, we haven't seen that at all with Boeing, Maley said. Boeing is still well below its March 2019 peak hit above $444 before the 737 MAX crisis. The stock currently trades at $244. But I'm willing to bet that with a lot of these planes somewhat grounded, the fewer and fewer trips that went around the country at the time, and the fact that they were sending planes up empty, there are going to be orders for new planes. I'm sure the government's going to come in and mandate that some of these planes get shut down and get some new planes coming out, because the government picks winners and losers, and the government, remember, has big contracts with Boeing. And I believe FAA is a government agency that inspects the planes, if I'm not mistaken. So that might happen as well, so we will see what happens with that. That one I could actually see for Boeing, so we'll see where that goes, what happens with that, and what that means. Let's get into the big news of the day, starting from KTVU.com. San Jose VTA shooting kills 10, including employee who opened fire. From KTVU staff. A mass shooting at a Valley Transportation Authority light rail yard in San Jose on Wednesday morning during a meeting left multiple people injured and 10 people dead, including the shooter, according to authorities and sources. The shooter was employed as a VTA rail technician, according to the Santa Clara County Sheriff's Office. The attacker was identified as 57-year-old Sam Cassidy. According to two law enforcement officials, investigators offered no immediate word on a possible motive. Santa Clara County District Attorney Jeff Rosen said the gunman killed himself following the massacre, which left a tight-knit transit community in shock and mourning. By Wednesday evening, Santa Clara County's medical examiner coroner's office identified 8 victims of the shooting before the 9th victim died late Wednesday night. Alex Ward Fritsch, 49, was identified as the latest victim who died at Santa Clara Medical Center after being listed in critical condition. Next of kin for each of the victims' families were notified. Their ages ranged from 29 to 63. There is the list of victims. Paul De La Cruz Mejia, age 42. Tapdejit Singh, age 36. Adrian Beleza, age 29. Jose de Jesus Hernandez III, age 35. Timothy Michael Romo, age 49. Michael Joseph Rudo Metkin, age 40. Abdul Wahab Alagmadan, age 63. Lars Kepler Lane, age 63. So if you know any of these people, reach out to their families, because they need you right now. Their jobs included bus and light rail operators, mechanics, linemen, and assistant superintendent, what had worked for the Transit Authority since 1999. Singh had worked as a light rail train driver for 8 or 9 years and had a wife, 2 small children, and many family members, said his cousin Baga Singh. We heard that he chose the people to shoot, but I don't know why they chose him because he has nothing to do with him, he said. He said he was told the gunman targeted certain people and let others go. San Jose City Councilman Raul Perez said, Rudo Metkin was a close friend. There are no words to describe the heartache we are feeling right now, especially for his family, he wrote on Facebook. 8 families are feeling the same sense of loss tonight, and our entire community is mourning as well. At an afternoon news conference, Rosen said he had not spoken to family members of the gunman and said it was not clear if there were any red flags that could have aided law enforcement from preventing the shooting. We don't have the answers yet, he said, regarding the investigation. In addition, Rosen said multiple guns were recovered from the scene, but none were ghost guns. So this isn't going to go down that push. But I know we talked a lot about the AR-15 yesterday. Cassidy's home on Angmar Court was the site of suspicious fire Wednesday morning that broke out shortly before the mass shooting. Law enforcement investigators and vehicles lined the streets in front of his home through the afternoon. There were reports of gasoline and ammunition found throughout the house. Really? Okay, that's a little bit suspicious. Santa Clara Sheriff's Deputy Russell Davis said the barrage of bullets was reported at 6:34 a.m. at the VTA light rail yard at 101 Younger Avenue, just a stone's throw from the sheriff's headquarters. A series of 911 calls prompted a flood of first responders and police who had to conduct a rescue operation of those left wounded inside the building. The ATF and the FBI were called in to investigate what happened and why. Davis would not elaborate on the type of weapon used or whether the shooting occurred inside or outside the building, which is a VTA hub that stores trains and serves as a maintenance yard. He would also wouldn't say how many people were injured or taken to the hospital. This is a fluid and active investigation, Davis said. 2 patients were transported to Santa Clara Valley Medical Center. According to spokesperson Joy Alexu, 1 person was pronounced dead upon arrival and the other was in critical condition. It was not immediately clear if there were other patients taken to other hospitals. Ground and aerial video showed dozens of patrol cars and fire engines lined the streets near the transit yard. So, a lot of stuff happening in these. Looks like these are a couple different articles that are going on, but a lot of stuff and a lot of information and a lot of the narrative bullshit to actually look through and see what we have going on here. Now, first and foremost, that was the first call that we saw yesterday. Was let's go and get rid of the AR-15. Nobody needs a weapon of war. Nobody needs of this. Nobody needs of that. Nobody needs the next thing, or the next thing, or the next thing, or the next thing. Ba 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 ba. And we keep hearing what the AR-15 isn't, because they keep calling it an assault rifle. It is not. I suspect that this was done with handguns. Now, the sheriff's deputy, as of right now, has not released any information on what types of weapons were used, and that's where I'm starting to think that this was handguns. Legally registered handguns. Now, whether or not they were stolen, we have yet to see. Whether or not they were legally owned, we have yet to see. And whether or not this is actually something that we need to watch to as well. Because when I see ammunition and gasoline lining a house when the ATF gets there, I start having a lot of questions. And I start not to trust the narrative anymore, and I start to wonder if this guy was a fall guy. Where we can easily come in, and if the evidence doesn't go our way, we can light the match and fucking blow the place. I have a lot of suspicion about all the gasoline inside the house that they mentioned. But I also, because the calls were coming into, let's get rid of all the assault rifles in there. Why do you need a rifle? Why does anybody need an assault rifle? An AR-15, it's a weapon of war. If this was an AR-15 involved shooting, the deputy would have said that right out first off. First and foremost, that would have been the first line. The fact that he's not talking about what weapons were used for this, and the fact that we, other than a bunch of people calling for assault weapons bans on Twitter and the president running his mouth on something he doesn't understand at all, we haven't seen a lot out of this story. The story just kind of sat there. It sat up on the trending tab on Twitter all day yesterday and didn't really get talked about. So, we'll see what's happening there. I've got a couple other articles on this topic, and then we'll move into some other fun stuff that happened yesterday. Let's see what we see from ABC 7 News. San Jose mass shooting. Victims ID'd after deadly attack at VTA light rail yard. Officials have started to release more information about the victims of the deadly shooting at the VTA rail yard in San Jose. The incident was first reported as an active shooter situation. Officials say 10 people, including the gunman, have died. The 9th shooting victim died in the hospital around 11:30 p.m. Wednesday night. Let's see. So we've got Taptajit Singh, the family of 36-year-old Taptajit Singh has identified him as one of the 9 victims killed at the VTA rail yard in San Jose on Wednesday. They said Singh was a VTA employee and lived in Union City with his wife. He is being hailed as a hero for helping coworkers hide during the shooting. Michael Rudametkin, San Jose council member Raul Peralez, identified his longtime friend as one of the victims. Yeah, it doesn't look like we've got much other description off of this. But yeah, good on that guy. If he's helping people hide on this, absolutely good on that guy. Good on top the Jeep. Absolutely. Because that should be your first responsibility. And I would trust that most people in my audience here would be doing the same thing. If there was a situation, and I know I talk to a lot of these people here, and I know that there is some courage that runs through the contemporary audience. I would hope that if, for whatever reason, something were to break out near one of you guys, that you would be the ones that were covering people and sheltering people and trying to get people out to safety, putting yourselves last. As I would myself. I would trust that you guys would do that. So I will praise this guy. With the information that I have going on right now, I will praise this guy. If something else comes out somewhere down the road and it shows that this guy didn't actually help people hide and get to safety during the shooting, then I'll call him a scumbag. But as of right now, it looks like this guy has earned some praise. From CNN. Gunman who killed 8 co-workers at California transit facility. New victims well, mayor says. From Eric Levinson, Stella Chan, Cherry Mossberg, and Paul P. Murphy. A gunman opened fire Wednesday morning at a public transit rail yard in San Jose, California, killing at least 8 co-workers and wounding at least 1 person. Deputy Russell Davis of the Santa Clara County Sheriff's Office said, "The gunman, an employee of the Valley Transportation Authority, is dead," Davis said. He has been identified as Sam Cassidy. A law enforcement source with knowledge of the investigation confirmed to CNN. Mayor Sam Liccardo told CNN's Jake Tapper the gunman was no stranger to people he had shot. "It is clear the victims and all the colleagues knew the shooter well," Liccardo said. The victims ranged in age from 29 to 63, according to the medical examiner. They were identified by the medical examiner, as we've read through these names a couple times now. Santa Clara County Sheriff Lori Smith said the victims worked together and they were there in the morning together. Cassidy had in the past spoke angrily about his coworkers and resented his work, his ex-wife told a Northern California news outlet. He had 2 sides, Cecilia Nelms told the Bay Area News Group, a CNN affiliate. Outside her home on Wednesday, when he was in a good mood, he was a great guy. When he was mad, he was mad. Davis said law enforcement officers didn't exchange gunfire with the gunman, and investigators believe he took his own life. "I know for sure that when the suspect knew the law enforcement was there, he took his own life. Our deputies were right there at that time," the sheriff said. "The deputies were there quickly because the sheriff's office is next door," she added. Smith said deputies and San Jose police officers ran into a building as the shooting was continuing. "And I know that it saved many lives. 1 wounded person is in critical condition," Davis said. I want to see the body cam. I want to see the body cam at this point immediately because I hear that the sheriff's office is right next door, that they were able to get there quickly, and they're saying they didn't exchange gunfire. I want to see the body cam. I want to see it. Conveniently, I bet there isn't going to be any body cam. And the other thing to think about with this as well is, we haven't seen a picture of the perpetrator at this point, but he's got kind of a white-sounding name, doesn't he? So, a lot of stuff to look at this. But even still, this fits the narrative, except for the fact that nobody was talking about this yesterday. So, I have a lot more questions than I have answers for this at this point. All right. Let's grab one from NBC News. Enough! Biden renews calls for gun control bill after San Jose rail yard shooting. From Dartanuro Clark. President Biden urged Congress to pass stricter gun control measures after the latest mass shooting at a Northern California rail yard Wednesday, in which 9 people were killed. I have the solemn duty of yet again ordering the flag to be lowered at half staff. Just weeks after doing so, following mass shootings at spas in and around Atlanta, in a grocery store in Boulder, Colorado, and at a home in Rock Hill, South Carolina, and at a FedEx facility in Indianapolis, Indiana, Biden said in a statement. You notice that we never got closure from any of those as well, by the way. They just kind of disappeared when they stopped fitting the narrative. A public transit employee opened fire on coworkers, at the downtown San Jose rail yard Wednesday, killing 9 people. Before he died by suicide, authorities said. The shooter was identified as Samuel Cassidy, an employee of the Santa Clara Valley Transportation Authority, law enforcement sources said. Firearm sales have set records and gun violence has spiked nationwide over the last year. We're still awaiting many of the details of this latest mass shooting, but there are some things we know for sure. There are at least 8 families who will never be whole again, Biden said in a statement before the 9th death was announced. There are children, parents, and spouses, man. The children, they sure smell good. Who are waiting to hear whether someone they love is ever going to come home. There are union brothers and sisters. Good, honest, hardworking people who are mourning their own. Enough, he said. Once again, I urge Congress to take immediate action and heed the call of the American people, including the vast majority of gun owners, to help end this epidemic of gun violence in America. Every life that is taken by a bullet pierces the soul of our nation. Oh my God, who wrote that cheesy fucking line? Oh, that's no Sam Miller speech. We can and we must do more. But don't worry, we're not coming for your guns. All right, let's grab one here. This is fan favorite of me using this news outlet as well. Let's grab one here from NPR for you guys. And remember, you need to take some time and donate to NPR because they're like PBS and they're funded in part by viewers like you. They're funded in a larger part by U.S. taxpayers, but they still need more of your money. So get them your money, won't you? Don't you mean our money, comrade? And let's see what they have to say. UK police detain 5 people over black activist Sasha Johnson's shooting. This comes to NPR via the Associated Press. Let's see what they have to say. British police said Wednesday that they have arrested 5 people on suspicion of attempted murder over the shooting of a prominent Black Lives Matter activist. Sasha Johnson, 27, was hospitalized in critical condition after she was shot at a house party in southeast London early on Sunday. Police and a friend have said nothing suggests that Johnson was targeted in the attack, but the Taking the Initiative party said she had received death threats in the past related to her activism. Well, anybody in the public eye has received death threats. Anybody who does something other than what the mainstream news tells them to do has received a death threat at one point. I have. I've received them on Twitter. I've received them in live chat before. It happens. If you're in the public eye, somebody hates you. London's Metropolitan Police Force has said Johnson was in the back garden attending a house party when 4 black men entered the premises and discharged a firearm, injuring Johnson. Police said Wednesday they detained 5 male suspects between the ages of 17 and 28 for other alleged offenses, including possession of drugs and weapons. Before all 5 were arrested on suspicion of attempted murder, they remained in police custody. The police force stressed it was not aware of any reports of threats made against Johnson prior to the incident. A friend of Johnson's told the BBC earlier this week that a gang violence at the party may have led to Johnson getting shot. It is, well, it's interesting to see the way this developed because Black Lives Matter is 100% unequivocally saying that Sasha Johnson was targeted, but the police are saying 100% unequivocally she was just a bystander that happened to get in the crossfire. And I don't know. I really don't. But also keep in mind that guns are almost entirely banned in the UK everywhere. You get your gun when you do your military service, but other than that, you don't get to have one, for the most part, under any circumstances around the United Kingdom, anywhere. And yet, one still got through. I saw a meme. I should see if I can find that meme for the Red Net Show. I don't know who my co-host is going to be that day, coming up on Monday, but I should see if I can find that meme again, because it showed a few states across the middle of the country that said, permitless concealed carry for law-abiding citizens, a few of them highlighted in bright blue. And then it said, permitless concealed carry for criminals, and it was the entire United States highlighted in blue, in bright, bright blue. And I thought that was interesting. But yeah, it's almost impossible to have, possess, or keep a gun in the United Kingdom, and yet it still happens. You can ban everything. You can ban every single weapon. And people will still find a way to either get that weapon and do the shooting, or do the killing with some other instrument. It's not about the weapon, it's about the killing. Ban high-capacity assault rocks. The third human in existence killed the fourth human in existence with one. That would be Cain killing Abel for those of you keeping up at home. High-capacity assault rocks. All right, so that's what we see coming back out of that. Let's grab one here from the New York Post. Speaking more gun. Do we need to do something over here? No. Okay. From the New York Post, Biden ATF pick, David Chipman botches assault rifle definition at contentious hearing. Yeah, we got a couple things to talk about with this guy, too. This is from Samuel Chamberlain. President Biden's choice to lead the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and Explosives struggled under questioning from Republican senators at his confirmation hearing on Wednesday, declining to identify which guns he would want banned as assault weapons. You have called for assault weapons ban, Senator Tom Cotton told David Shipman during the Senate Judiciary Committee hearing. I have a simple question for you. What is an assault weapon? Senator, Chipman answered, an assault weapon would be, in the context of the question you asked, what Congress defines it as. So you're asking us to ban assault weapons, Cotton answered. We have to write legislation. Can you tell me what is an assault weapon? How would you define it if you were the head of the ATF? How have you defined it over the last several years in your role as a gun control advocate? Actually, let's just watch the video. Let's see what's going on with this. And we will see if I have to go back and read some more of the article.
I want to turn to a second matter now, Mr. Chipman. You have called for an assault weapons ban. I have a simple question for you. What is an assault weapon?
Senator, an assault weapon would be, in the context of the question you asked, what Congress defines it as.
So you're asking us to ban assault weapons. We have to write legislation. Can you tell me what is an assault weapon? How would you define it if you were the head of the ATF? How have you defined it over the last several years as your role as a gun control advocate?
Senator, if I'm confirmed as ATF director, my recollection is the only process by which ATF has weighed in is that I know there's a Demand Letter 3 program, which requires multiple reports, multiple sale reports on the southwestern border. And ATF in that program has defined an assault rifle as any semi-automatic rifle capable of accepting a detachable magazine above the caliber of .22, which would include a .223, which is, largely the AR-15 round.
So you believe...
That's like, and that's what the tweet says too off of that. That's like every rifle ever. I mean, seriously, that takes down several wooden stock items around just this studio. And they say that the wooden stock ones are okay because they're not scary in black composite.
Believe that every weapon that takes a detachable magazine that can take a 22 round or 5.56 in military parlance should be defined as an assault weapon?
Let me clarify. What I believe I just said is any semi-automatic rifle.
Okay, any semi-automatic rifle.
What?
That's the definition. A detachable magazine that takes a 5.56 or 22 round should be defined as an assault weapon.
Senator, you asked me if ATF had used this term, and I was sharing with you my knowledge of a program in which ATF has defined this term. And it is in the Demand Letter 3 program, and that rifle is a semi-automatic rifle capable of accepting a detachable magazine with a round greater than a .22 caliber. And in those cases, firearms dealers on the southwest border are required to make a multiple sale report to ATF.
I'm amazed that that might be the definition of assault weapon. That would basically cover every single modern sporting rifle in America today.
And yeah, just like I said, that knocks out several things around, just sitting around me. A couple of them I can see from here. That knocks out a lot of them. I hope you guys are skilled and proficient with fucking bolt action if this guy gets in, because that might be what's coming in the near future. And that's the other part of this too. I mean, first and foremost, I know they're not rifled barrels, I know they're not long guns, but that also knocks out almost every pistol in existence. Except, down to your 22 LR, because the vast majority of them are semi-automatic. And there is an argument that you could say that a revolver would also be a semi-automatic pistol, because with the double action hammer on it, it's, one trigger pull, one bullet, one trigger pull, one bullet, one trigger pull, one bullet. For most of your modern revolvers, it's a different kind of semi-automatic action, but it doesn't require you to come back and make an action every time you want to fire a bullet. So there's an argument that could be made for those as well. However, we're not talking about pistols in this particular one, but I hope you're proficient with pump action, bolt action. Even still, if I really wanted to, I could do a lot more damage with my bolt action than I could with any of my semi-autos. I could do a lot more damage with that. This guy doesn't know shit, and, Tom doesn't really either, but on top of that. And this is the guy who wants to make executive action on your guns, because Congress isn't going to make a fucking law. When's the last time Congress has made an actual law on something? All right, let's grab one here from the Daily Wire. More Chipman stuff. More Chipman and Cotton. Biden ATF nominee promises to give Hunter Biden gun background check form to Senate. Probe any crimes, from Ryan Saavedra. I got a feeling that's not actually going to happen. David Chipman, a gun control advocate who is Democrat President Joe Biden's nominee to be director of the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, which should be a convenience store, not a federal bureau, told the U.S. Senate on Wednesday that if he is confirmed to the position, he will turn over records related to the purchase of firearm by Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden. The background check that Hunter Biden filled out in October of 2018 to obtain a firearm is relevant because in order to obtain the firearm, Biden had to state that he was not addicted to any substances. However, in a recent book that he wrote, Hunter admitted that at approximately the same time he obtained the firearm, he was addicted to drugs. Lying on an ATF Form 4473 is a felony that can carry a 10-year prison sentence with $250,000 fines. Yeah, like fucking Garland is going to push that. Garland's going to make that shit disappear. Because while Billy Barr was accused of being President Trump's personal attorney and being his personal wingman, Eric Holder was Obama's personal attorney and personal wingman. And I got this feeling that Merrick Garland is going to be following suit on that. The federal prosecutor will come in and say, okay, Mr. Okay, Mr. Biden, it's time for you to come in because you've broken federal law, and in comes Merrick Garland. You know what? We don't have the time and the resources to prosecute this, so just let's dismiss this one, okay? Let's just forget about this one that never happened. Chipman was questioned by Senator Grassley about providing records related to the incident. And we've got video of this too. From the Daily Caller, Senator Tom Cotton grills ATF nominee David Chipman about whether he would prosecute President Biden's son Hunter for lying on a federal firearm background check form. Let's listen.
At a time, but thank you. Mr. Chipman, you testified to Senator Lee that it's a serious felony to lie on a background check application. I agree. The ATF form 4473 asks, are you an unlawful user of or addicted to any drug or uncontrolled substance? If an applicant checks yes, they cannot purchase a firearm. On March 25th, Politico reported that Hunter Biden, President Biden's son, applied for a handgun that was later thrown in the trash and had to be recovered by Secret Service agents in 2018. Politico reported that Hunter Biden completed this background check and answered no to the question of whether he was an unlawful user of or addicted to any drug. Hunter Biden has since published a book and gone on a nationwide book tour, conducting numerous interviews, stating that he was, in fact, very much addicted to drugs at the same time that he purchased this firearm. This would mean that by his own admission, Hunter Biden lied on that form and, by your earlier testimony, committed a serious felony. Should Hunter Biden be prosecuted for breaking this law?
Senator, thank you for your question. If I'm confirmed as ATF director, it will be my responsibility to enforce all federal laws without political favor. I do not know any factors in this particular case, but I am familiar with the press account of it.
Well, my understanding is the statute of limitation is only 5 years, and that this happened in 2018. Mr. Biden is obligated to keep a record of that form for up to 5 years himself. So this should be a fairly easy case to investigate. Can I get your commitment that if you are confirmed, you will in fact look into this matter and refer it for prosecution if you find that Hunter Biden violated the law?
Senator, what I will assure you is that if ATF director, I will ensure that all violations of law are investigated and referred. I'm not sure that it has not been investigated.
Well, I hope it has, and if the facts are as clear-cut as they appear to be, based on Mr. Biden's own admission, I would expect to see criminal charges forthcoming. But I would say that when a case is as high profile as this, if there is not an answer for the American people and public, it severely undermines the confidence in our gun laws, as well as the ATF and the Department of Justice, if there are not criminal consequences.
Yeah, but the other part of that is the family members of high-powered politicians, unless their last names are Trump, don't get held accountable in a court of law for any reason whatsoever. All right, so that's what we see coming back from that. All right, let's grab one from NBC. Shifting gears here, let's move right back slightly into the BLM side of things. From NBC News, white woman who called 911 on black man last year in Central Park sues former employer. Where are my New York City people at? From Doha Madani. The white woman, who was recorded on video calling police to claim that a black birdwatcher was threatening her in New York City's Central Park last year, filed a suit against her former employer, alleging that the company did not properly consider her for personal safety, fear for personal safety prior to firing her. Amy Cooper filed a federal complaint against investment management company Franklin Templeton on Tuesday, alleging that the company terminated her based on her race and gender, while also failing to properly investigate the viral incident that made national headlines. The lawsuit, filed exactly a year after the Central Park confrontation, requests a jury trial. Franklin Templeton characterized the lawsuit's claims as baseless in a statement Wednesday and plans to defend itself. We believe the circumstances of the situation speak for themselves and that the company responded appropriately, the statement said. Last May, a video was posted to social media of Amy Cooper calling 911 on a birdwatcher, Christian Cooper, alleging to police that an African-American man threatened her life and the life of her dog. NBC News does not know what happened prior to the start of the recording, which was shared by Christian Cooper's sister. And that usually is the problem with everything else that goes along with this, is we don't know what happened leading up to all this stuff. We just see the recording, and usually there's about 10 or 12 things that happen right before people started recording. Jacob Blake. St. George. Christian Cooper, of no relation to Amy Cooper, told NBC News at the time that he approached her to ask her to put her dog back on a leash, which is the policy for the Ramble area of Central Park. Amy Cooper told NBC New York last year that she overreacted and was sorry. When I think about the police, I'm such a blessed person. I've come to realize, especially today, that I think of the police as a protection agency, and unfortunately this has caused me to realize that there are so many people in this country that don't have that luxury. She said, bullshit, you came out and said that they were going to be nastier to the dude because he was a black dude. This story is just so fucking fishy. And it comes in a time, too. Keep in mind everything else that was happening, because it was, if I remember correctly, it was the Ahmaud Arbery story, which didn't take off because a lot of people looked at it and said, no, these guys that killed this dude were a scumbag and they need to be prosecuted. This couldn't turn Republicans against the black community. And then it was this one, and then it was St. George. And then St. George just fucking took off and we forgot about these ones. I question whether or not this was staged. I really do. But if it wasn't, and all the facts are as they appear in this, then this woman is kind of a piece of crap. I'm not going to lie. Because that's kind of a shitty thing to do. And then come out and say, I'm sorry, I didn't know that, I said that the police would be harsher on a black guy, but I didn't know that the police would actually be harsher on a black guy. Well, you did the crime, now do the time. All right, from CNN. This will be CNN Business. Why Amazon just spent more than $8 billion on MGM from Prank Balada. Well, I'm guessing it's because they needed a new studio. They needed to push more highly specialized, highly woke, highly trash programming because they need to compete with Netflix. MGM, a classic Hollywood brand synonymous with The Wizard of Oz and Leo the Roaring Lion, was purchased for $8.45 billion on Wednesday by Amazon, a company currently valued at nearly $1.7 trillion. Being gobbled up by a tech behemoth is a fitting finale for a studio that has been whittled down over the last century by one technology disruption after another. MGM has relayed the story of Hollywood. Jonathan Kuntz, a film producer at UCLA School of Theater, Film, and TV, told CNN Business the studio has gone through all the cycles of the film business over the last 100 years. In many ways, MGM is the idea of a classic Hollywood studio, and it tried to preserve that idea long after it was no longer a viable business strategy. Here's a brief history of MGM and why Amazon was so likely interested in buying it. As Hollywood changes, much of it stays the same. Case in point, MGM started nearly a century ago with a merger. In 1924, Marcus Lowe, a theater mogul, brought together Metro Pictures and Goldwyn Pictures, as well as Louis B. Mayer Productions, to form Metro Goldwyn Mayer. Hollywood, as they say, would never be the same. And yeah, every Tom and Jerry cartoon was MGM. The studio exemplified Hollywood's golden age. The period planted the seeds of what would become modern-day Hollywood and produced many films that would help define cinema. The Wizard of Oz, Singing in the Rain, and Ben-Hur. None of which I've seen, by the way. I've seen most of The Wizard of Oz. For whatever reason, every time I sit down to watch The Wizard of Oz, when it's on TV, and I've never tried to do this on demand or anything, but every time I sit down to watch The Wizard of Oz when it's on TV, something happens when they go to the witch's castle, where I have to get up and walk away, and by the time I get up, they're standing in front of the wizard again. By the time I get back there, they're standing in front of the wizard again. I have no idea what happens in those 10 minutes. In those 10 minutes of film. I have no idea, because I've never seen it. It was far and away one of the most successful studios of Hollywood's early days. At one time, MGM was the most prestigious studio in Hollywood. Leonard Moulton, a film critic and historian, told CNN Business. It had a glory period that ran for decades. Since MGM was a big part of the studio system, which held actors under contract at different studios, it also helped create some of Hollywood's most glamorous stars, such as Greta Garbo, Clark Gable, and Joan Crawford. It was said of MGM that they had more stars than in the heavens, Moulton added. But as Hollywood changed with the advent of TV, MGM was one of the most reluctant to change, Kuntz pointed out. MGM tried to preserve the old ways of Hollywood. He said, you might say it was in first place during the classic era of Hollywood, and has arguably been in last place during the modern era of Hollywood. And, I could keep going with this, but, this entire article is bolstered with pictures of James Bond, so keep that in mind. You've got The Lion, you've got Tom and Jerry. There are big names that came with MGM. James Bond, Handmaid's Tale, RoboCop, Legally Blonde, Epix TV Network. There's a bunch of stuff that is going to get picked up by Amazon, a bunch of franchises that they can come back, and MGM wouldn't let them probably touch afterwards. So yeah, they're going under, but they're holding on to their assets or trying to sell off their assets, and now with $8 billion coming back in there, MGM can come back and say, okay, we can do this. And now Amazon can put out a James Bond flick or a Tom and Jerry cartoon. Or they can revive the corpse of Reese Witherspoon and have her act again as Elle Woods. Or even The Handmaid's Tale, because that's the only TV series that anybody in my generation watches, especially when it comes to Supreme Court cases. So that's probably why they did it. I would say that the Bond franchise in itself is worth $8 billion to Amazon. From the Daily Wire, Josh Hawley, Amazon, a monopoly platform, should not be allowed to buy MGM. From Paul Bois. After news broke that Amazon acquired Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer for a whopping $8.45 billion, Senator Josh Hawley protested the sale, appearing to argue that it violates monopoly laws. Hawley tweets out, the sale should not go through. Amazon is already a monopoly platform that owns e-commerce, shipping, groceries, and the cloud. They shouldn't be permitted to buy anything else, period. I'm actually not far off from Hawley. I'm not going to lie. I understand why they did it, because they want to become richer, because they want to take over bigger market share of things. And Bezos is going to be stepping down from there eventually, so they're going to be looking to change the way that they look at things. But yeah, like I said, just having the Bond franchise is going to be massive for Amazon. And they are monopolistic at this point. So, yeah, I can see where Hawley's coming from on that. All right, let's shift gears again. Let's talk about the commie coup. From the New York Post, Biden orders spy agencies to review whether or not COVID-19 came from a Wuhan lab. From Stephen Nelson. President Biden on Tuesday ordered U.S. spy agencies to do a 90-day investigation into whether COVID-19 was released by a Chinese lab, with the White House saying it wasn't ruling out anything, including the deliberate release of the virus. Biden made the abrupt pivot after his administration insisted for weeks that it would defer to the World Health Organization for answers on how the commie coup started. Biden said in a statement that the two theories predominate current U.S. official thinking. Those theories are that the virus emerged naturally from animals or escaped from a lab in Wuhan, China. As of today, the U.S. intelligence community has coalesced around two likely scenarios, but it has not reached a definitive conclusion on this question. Come on, man, Biden said. Here's their current position. Well, two elements in the intelligence community leans towards the former scenario, and one leans toward the latter, each with low or moderate confidence. The majority of elements do not believe there's sufficient information to assess one to be more likely than the other. Biden released the statement after his chief medical advisor, Dr. Anthony Fauci, hallowed be his name, was grilled Wednesday by senators about whether the WHO is beholden to China. A preliminary WHO study controlled by China this year concluded the virus likely emerged naturally. No. This just come from some idiot eat snake in market. CNN reported on Tuesday that the Biden admin closed down a probe into whether COVID-19 originated in the Wuhan Institute of Virology. White House Deputy Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre said at a press briefing that no explanation is being rolled out for the pandemic's origins. So, now they can talk about this. Remember... Okay, I'm going to repeat a bunch of other people at this point, but you remember a couple years ago, last year, when if you even suggested this could be a possibility, you were labeled a crazy conspiracy theorist, and you were probably an anti-vaxxer? Anyway, that's what we see coming back up out of that. Let's grab one from the Daily Wire. Biden admin, we haven't ruled out possibility that pandemic from China was deliberately unleashed. From Ryan Saavedra. White House Deputy Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre refused to state on Wednesday if the Biden admin would punish China for the pandemic if it originated from the Wuhan Institute of Virology, and even went as far as to say they haven't ruled out the possibility that the pandemic could have been deliberate. I want to see if there's video. There's video. Let's listen.
Another question on COVID. The language that you all used specifically mentioned an accident. Does that mean that you've ruled out, or the IC has ruled out, that it was deliberate or not an accident?
We haven't ruled out anything yet. Again, we're going to go through this, this redoubling down of a 90-day review, and we'll have more to share.
Another question on COVID. The language that you all used specifically mentioned an accident. Does that mean that you've ruled out, or the IC has ruled out, that it was deliberate or not an accident?
We haven't ruled out anything yet.
We haven't ruled anything out yet. The flurry of questions that Jean-Pierre answered came after President Biden released a statement earlier in the day saying he directed the intelligence community to redouble their efforts to collect and analyze information that could bring us closer to a definitive conclusion and report back to me in 90 days, man. If I'm still alive, man. Come on. Yeah, I know, it was dark.
But just on a 30, just take a step back, anything that kills 591,116 Americans, is that something, if another nation either was responsible or knew more than they were letting on, like you said, they weren't letting the inspectors in, and that hurt the overall investigation forever. What would the president do? Would he do anything?
I mean, he's doing something right now. He asked his team back in March, right, to do this, to look into the origins of COVID-19. This is incredibly important. Like his statement says, we need to find out where the COVID-19 originated from. So the president has been very clear. He actually, spoke out about this back in 2020. So this is not the first time we've heard his voice, his concern about the origins of COVID-19. So we're just taking the next step. I'm just not going to prejudge. I'm not going to make a statement until we know what happens after this 90-day review. Thanks.
Well, I guess we're going to see what happens. So let's move on and see what the social media giants are doing about this. From Politico, Facebook no longer treating man-made COVID as a crackpot idea. from Cristiano Lima. Facebook will no longer take down posts claiming that COVID-19 was man-made or manufactured, a company spokesperson told Politico on Wednesday, a move that acknowledges the renewed debate about the virus origins. Facebook's policy tweak arrives as support surges in Washington for a fuller investigation into the origins of COVID-19 after the Wall Street Journal reported that 3 scientists at the Wuhan Institute of Virology were hospitalized in late 2019 with symptoms consistent with the virus. The findings have reinvigorated the debate about the so-called Wuhan lab leak theory, once dismissed as a fringe conspiracy theory. President Biden said Wednesday that he has ordered the intelligence community to redouble its efforts to find out if the virus's origin and report back in 90 days. Biden also revealed that the intelligence community is split between the 2 theories about COVID-19's origin and that it will review and examine whether it emerged from human contact with an infected animal or from a laboratory accident. Bipartisan support is also building on Capitol Hill for a congressional inquiry, which is fucking ridiculous at this point. I mean, this just tells you, this screams to me that the reaction to this, not necessarily the disease I believe is real. But that the reaction to this and what they did in this country, because I don't believe the death numbers, I don't believe 500,000 people, I don't believe any of that shit. I think a lot of this numbering was padded to make sure that hospitals got extra money in spite of the panic, and the reaction to this was specifically engineered once they realized, hey, we've got a disease that we can panic everybody about, to take down a sitting president of the United States. I honestly believe that. And now we can come back out and say whatever the fuck we want about it, because the orange man is gone. Fuck these people. Every goddamn last one of these establishment assholes. I got another one here, speaking of Facebook. Archived, of course, because it's USA Today. There it goes, it loaded back up. Instagram and Facebook will let users hide likes on posts, from Terry Collins. The choice is yours. Facebook and Instagram are now giving you the option to hide likes. After weeks of testing 2 of the world's most popular social media apps that are owned by the same person, with nearly 4 billion users combined, on Wednesdays will start letting users decide if they want to hide the number of likes on other users' posts, hide the feature on their own posts, or make no changes. You'll also be able to change whether to hide likes on a per-post basis. On both platforms, you can hide the like counts in the new post section on settings. The head of Facebook-owned Instagram, Adam Mosseri, told reporters the option to hide likes has been on its radar since late 2019, but got derailed due to the pandemic. Mosseri said that while the hiding option during the recent testing didn't affect the experiences of millions of users, it did end up being pretty polarizing. Some people really liked it, some people really didn't, Mosseri said. For those who liked it, it was mostly what they'd hoped, which is that it depressurized the experience. For those who didn't, they used the likes to get a sense of what was trending, what was relevant to Instagram and on Facebook, and they're super annoyed that we took it away. So the solution? We're going to give people both on Facebook and Instagram the option so that they can decide. This is going to be used, once again, as a shield for people who pay bunches and billions and buttloads of fucking money to these companies to make sure that they're the top dog on everything else in the world. You know what this is being used for. You guys are smart. You watch this program. Of course you're smart. You guys know what's going on with this and the fact that this is mostly going to be used to hide the fact that everybody fucking hates the CNN coverage or the Fox News coverage. This is going to be used to hide the big donut. Now, there are going to be Instagram models that come out to do this, but there are other ones that are going to say, hey, let's get the option back up here. And I know Instagram took away the counter for a while. You can still see, like, you could sit down and count how many people like to post, but you can't see. You can't, like, they won't give you a counter at the top where it used to be like, I don't know, Megan X and Queen Carly and Carly Moore Krogman and 44 others like this post. Something like that. You used to just be able to see that. So you'd say 47 likes. Now you could just see Carly Moore Krogman and others like this post. They took that away, and yeah, you can take away some of the trending that goes along with that. But you also can't see when somebody gets fucking ratioed into fucking oblivion. And YouTube is, I guarantee, going to be next. And people like me are going to sit here and say, okay, I've got 7 watching and 3 likes right now. What's going on with that? And I will call out my live chat for that. But your CNN, when they play something that the president says, which nobody likes, you're not going to be able to see the massive thumbs down ratio because they've already hidden the thumbs down section of it. It's thumbs up, and then you can hit the thumbs down if you want to. Because people are starting to realize that nobody likes the mainstream coverage of bullshit anymore. And it's all bullshit. All right, let's grab one here. Let's talk about our friends over in California once again. California's Newsom ordered to pay $1.35 million in settlements with LA area church over coronavirus restrictions. From Bree Stimson. California Governor Gavin Newsom has been ordered to pay $1.35 million in a settlement reached earlier this month with the Los Angeles area church over a lawsuit related to the state's coronavirus restrictions. Under the terms of the settlement, Newsom's administration can no longer place pandemic restrictions on houses of worship, according to local newspaper Pasadena Now. Matt Staver, founder of the Liberty Council, which represented the Harvest Rock Church of Pasadena, called Newsom the worst governor in America for religious liberty, according to the Washington Examiner. The church stayed open during the lockdown, and the pastor and parishioners were threatened with the daily criminal charges that were up to a year in prison, he said. The settlement amount is to repay the church's attorney costs and fees in the lawsuit brought against Newsom's administration last summer. After nearly a year-long battle defending the religious freedoms, our lawsuit has reached permanent settlement in our favor. The Reverend Che An, founder of the church, said in a statement, according to the Patch, I am thrilled to see the complete reversal of the last discriminatory restrictions against churches in California. So, everybody's happy at this point. The churches can open, and they can go back and sue Newsom for the fact that they did this, and they did so, too, by the way. And I hope they all get new steeples. Or, well, I suppose $1.35 million in Los Angeles will get you 1/8 of an acre without a building on it. But hopefully they'll get to do some sort of improvement from this. All right, let's grab one here from KTLA 5. Constant emergency zone calls for change mount as homeless encampment fills Venice boardwalk. Crime increases. From Lauren Lister and Nuran Salahia. With a homeless encampment stretching across much of Venice Beach boardwalk and a spate of recent crimes alarming residents, the calls for city officials to take action have grown to a cacophony. I'm 75 years old. I need to be off this boardwalk, said Michael Solomon, who lives in a tent on Venice Beach. I want to be in housing so I can be stable. Solomon is one of the people living in tents lining the boardwalk. On Sunday, KTLA counted about 115 tents in the boardwalk area. The number of tents on the beach has grown since 2020 when the pandemic hit, leaving millions jobless and creating more housing insecurity in a city already dealing with homelessness crisis. At last count, there were nearly 2,000 homeless people in Venice, according to an LA Homeless Services Authority count done in January 2020, that found more than 41,000 unhoused people citywide. This year's count was skipped due to the pandemic, but experts expect those LA figures to continue climbing into 2023. The numbers were already increasing before the pandemic. 2020 data showed a 57% increase in the number of homeless people in Venice over the previous year, far greater than the increase in the city as a whole, which was 16.1%. It's the worst I've seen in 20 years, Venice resident John Betts told KTLA. The increasing number of tents along the Venice boardwalk have generated calls for city officials to clear the area for residents and tourists, as well as to provide shelter and services for unhoused people who take refuge by the beach. And that's kind of what we talked about this. What was it, Tuesday? We talked about this with Austin and the tent cities as well, because you don't want to have the government spend a bunch of money. You want to have private charity deal with this, but you also want to make sure that we don't have people in tents, which are very hard to lock from the inside, by the way, and can be cut open with a knife. People can be robbed. People can be done this, that, and the next thing left and fucking right with these tents. It is not a secure way to live. And you hate to see people living that way. But it is a vicious cycle either way, because, if you don't have an address, how do you get a job in today's day and age? It's not like you can just walk in and be hired on the spot like you could 30 fucking years ago. 30, 35 years ago. When, application, that's just formality, you're already hired. If they look at you and they find out that you don't have an address, it's very unlikely that they're going to hire you. So we got to do something. We got to get some of these people back to work as well. A lot of them did lose their jobs, and they can't get the stimulus funds that everybody else got so much that are being inflated off of this because they're homeless. They don't have an address to send it to. So I would rather see private charity do this. I really would. But we need to look at something off of this. Plus, you can't send tourists down here where the homeless are camping out. That's going to be a big draw on the finances for Los Angeles as well. In a city that taxes and beats the shit out of its residents to a point where they can't work anyway. That's the only thing they can do is get tourist dollars. All right. Let's grab one from the Blaze. Then I got just a couple more, and then we'll do a thing that I like, a thing that I hate, and head on out of here. Let's let this think for a second. Come on, old girl. Hold on for just a little bit more, and then you can retire. We're almost there. Biden admin physically restricts 12 GOP lawmakers from access to border facility. From Chris Pandolfo. The Biden admin on Tuesday denied several Republican lawmakers access to Drug Enforcement Administration border facility in El Paso. A delegation of 12 GOP members of Congress were physically restricted from entering the El Paso Intelligence Center during a visit to the southern border, Fox News reported. The lawmakers have reportedly attempted to gain access to the facility for weeks but have been rebuffed by Biden's government. The GOP lawmakers accused the Biden admin of interfering with their constitutional duty to have oversight over these facilities that are paid for by our taxpayer dollars. Holy shit, did I just lose a bunch of frames? Did I drop off for a second? Because I'm a bunch of frames down and just looked over here. Goodness. Anyway, let's finish up here. All I can say is I don't know what they have to hide, Representative Brian Babin of Texas said. For some reason, we're not allowed in. I can only imagine what is it that they want to hide and not show the very representatives of the American people that have oversight over this facility and fund it and that authorize it. What don't they want us to see? It's not something we surprised them with, said Mike Garcia. We've been trying to get there for a couple of weeks, and it's coming from the top. It's coming from the White House. They don't want us to see what it is. You can make conjecture about why they won't let us in there, in my opinion. They have data that they are gathering at the Intelligence Center, which clearly indicates that our open borders are actually more serious than the average American understands right now. Yeah, that's probably true, too. A third lawmaker complained that Biden is preventing Republicans from learning about the government's efforts to battle drug cartels. I would have liked to have the opportunity to visit with the FBI and the agents there to learn more about the drug cartels are doing and what the strategy that we're employing to stop them, said Vicky Hartzler of Missouri. But we were denied the opportunity. A DEA official stationed at the El Paso facility told Fox News there was an increase in drug smugglers crossing the U.S.-Mexico border in March and indicated agents are concerned that the recent trends will continue. In the first 5 months, we've seized more than the entire year for those in 2019 and 2020, So that's concerning for us, and that's all drugs across the board. That's methamphetamine, fentanyl, heroin, and cocaine. The only drug is marijuana. They haven't seized quite that much, said DEA Special Agent Kyle Williamson, who leads the El Paso division. Yeah, if I was going there, I would love to see what they're doing with that. If I was in Congress and I was complaining about this, if I promised my constituents here in Wisconsin that I would wrestle with representatives of Texas and Arizona and New Mexico about trying to get more border security, I would want to see what they're doing. But, the most transparent administration in history and most popular, honk, 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 wink. All right, couple more. From CNBC. Pay down your student loans or wait for forgiveness. A financial planner weighs in on the best next step. From Elizabeth Gravier. President Biden's upcoming annual White House budget proposal won't include any student debt forgiveness, according to recent news reports. For nearly 43 million federal borrowers, Friday's news may be disappointing, especially given earlier moves by the Biden admin that suggested major student loan cancellation policy could be forthcoming. In early April, Biden asked the U.S. Department of Education to review whether his executive authority gives him the ability to enact massive student loan forgiveness without congressional approval. This move gave millions of Americans a glimmer of hope, but we still await to see the results of this report. As borrowers continue to be left in the dark, many are wondering when and if their debt will get canceled. Now that student loan forgiveness isn't included in Biden's annual budget, should borrowers move on and pay off their student loans? Yes! Taking advantage of the last few months of the interest rate pause, or should they still wait it out a bit longer in hopes that they'll see debt canceled? As with most things personal finance related, the answer depends on your individual situation. Below, Select outlines 3 scenarios with input from Megan Landris, consulted at Student Loan, Planned, and Certified Student Loan Professional, about how you should proceed with your loan repayment. Yes, you should just pay it all back off. Any way that you can. I'm doing that right now. It's part of the reason I'm going to try and hawk houses and work at my 40-hour-a-week job for a few months, so I can get mine paid down and maybe even paid off at this point. That should be the first thing you do, is get the fuck rid of that. Yes, I understand you got suckered into going in and signing a contract that you had no way and no means of paying back, and that you were promised that you were able to get $1 million a year for working as a barista with a gender studies degree. I understand that, but you signed on it. Pay it. And stay the fuck away from mine, too, by the way. Government, get the fuck out of my student loans. Stay away from mine, because you fuck everything up that you touch. I hate the student loan argument, I really do. Get the government out of the way so we can get more people to work. Surprisingly enough, this isn't even the thing that I hate today. But it elicited a reaction from me either way. And the last one that we have here comes once again from NPR for you guys. Don't forget, comrades, it is our money. It's not your money, it's our money. So make sure you find all the donate links in here and you give them all of our money, comrade. Because they cannot only be held up in part by viewers like you. So give it all away. You don't need it. The government will provide for you because that's what the government does. A tiny fund has scored a historic win against ExxonMobil over the future of oil. From Camilla Domanowski. In a dramatic boardroom battle on Wednesday, a tiny hedge fund fought with the giant energy giant, ExxonMobil, over the future of oil and gas industry and won. The brand new activist hedge fund, Engine Number One, successfully placed at least 2 new candidates on the company's board of directors in hopes that they can use that position to push Exxon to take climate change more seriously. For 2 more seats on the board, the vote was too close to call. Winning a seat for any directors at all is an unprecedented achievement by an activist shareholder who have spent decades trying to persuade companies to cut their carbon emissions. To do it at ExxonMobil, one of the world's most influential oil companies, makes the feat all the more astonishing. During Wednesday's shareholder meeting, Charlie Penner of Engine Number One described his fund's campaign as a long shot. Seemingly braced for defeat, he lambasted the investment community for accepting the idea that humanity will inevitably drive itself off a cliff as hard-headed realism or sound business practice. But then the votes were tallied. Donate now, everyone. Fund public radio's future. Fuck you, get out of here. But then the votes were tallied. The long shot, it turns out, was a success. And instead of accepting the inevitability of climate change, the mainstream investment community sent a signal that it was embracing the possibility that the world will shift away from using oil and gas. No, it won't. It won't. You guys can keep saying this fantasy thing as long as you want. But oil and gas is the best way to manufacture the things that you guys think are just the environmentally friendly things. The plastics in your electric cars, the mining equipment that mines your lithium batteries that destroy environments down there. You guys have no idea what your industry is. You just have been told that oil and gas are bad for your entire lives. And you have climate change. You've been told that this is the be-all, end-all. And you've been told that by 2002 there would be no more ice caps and no more Florida. Guess what? There's still a Florida. I was there last year. And ExxonMobil is going down at this point, so they're either going to kick this dumbass to the curb after they start losing money because of the decisions that he's making, or they'll go under and another oil company will come up in its place. But realistically, when you look at something like this, and I am amazed by the fact that this is even being allowed to be thought about at this point. I am amazed by this fact. We're looking at this. And we want more strip mining, more electric cars, more this, more that. I am in favor of electric cars. But I understand what the manufacturing process is to get there. And these people don't. They don't know how steel is forged. They don't know how plastic is made. Hell, they don't know what lithium is. They just know that the electric car doesn't go... So, this one here, I want to grab some popcorn for and just watch. Because it's time to just sit back and watch this one. Alright, now let's do a thing that I like and a thing that I hate. And get the fuck out of here. Alright, thing that I like today. Well, you guys know, and I've complained about it today because the old HP is getting to retirement age at this point. I mean, this laptop I've been running this program through is 5 years old at this point. And I bought it used. But I wanted to take some time and let you guys know what I'm building here, what's coming up here. It's all sitting out there. Seawall was the one that built this for me. And he donated the graphics card, which was awesome. Friend of the show, Ice and Fire, came over and picked up the RAM for me so I can... I can get this thing built and running and then upgrade the RAM later. Is basically what I'm looking at right now. But, I mean, this is what we've got. I've got the AMD Ryzen 7 3700 3.6 8-core processor to replace my older i5 with integrated graphics. MSI B550A Pro ATX AM4 motherboard, which is a bit intimidating. I'm sorry. I have built old computers before out of old scrap parts. From stuff that was left over from the 90s into the early 2000s. I've built old computers like that before. But the number of cords that came out of the power supply for this computer I'm building right now actually intimidated me. I am going to try and get this all done and everything to go for myself, and I'm probably going to watch some videos on it a little bit later on, but my God, that is intimidating. A new solid-state drive, a great big power supply, plus, the This will be a 3-screen system. We're going to get some production values up here. Our production values are going to look good. I'm going to make this program look good for you because I've actually got the resources to do so now, instead of just struggling as to what this old i5 could do. And it did perform admirably. I cannot complain for a second about this laptop. I can't complain at all about this HP that's sitting over here to my right. It has done admirably for what it was. For the hardware that's in this thing, it has done admirably. And we are going to do a proper send-off for this. We will do a special Ed Talk on a Saturday, as soon as I get this built up and running and the scenes built. We will do a special send-off, and I'm going to keep the thing and use it for like video editing or doing work when I go up to my mom and dad's or whatnot, but we'll give it a special send-off because this helped us build our community. This helped us make friends the way that we're all friends now. And yeah, I'm very happy with how this came out with, and I'm very happy with the pieces that I have here. And hopefully, this will last us for another few years, and we won't have to do any major upgrades. So definitely looking forward to that. Let's do a thing that I hate. Let's head over here to Twitter. Now, mind you, I didn't prep the thing I like and thing I hate today. I hit the live button and realized I didn't have a thing that I like and a thing that I hate today. But as I was going through the show, I thought about some of the things that I like and the things that I hate. So I wanted to go back to here, to something that was mentioned over on Clint's Twitter. So let me go grab this over here. A lot of cool stuff in here. I'm way too active on Twitter. Where the fuck is it? I know it's, yep, this one right here. So, Liberty Lockdown, Clint from Liberty Lockdown tweeted this out the other day. Current theory, lab leak story was squashed because they needed to blame the outbreak on Trump. My theory, imagine if we'd found out in August that our government had funded the creation of the virus for which we were locked in our houses. It was revolt prevention. Getting Trump out was a bonus. To which I replied, and it looks like a couple of people even agreed with me. I don't have Liberty Lockdown numbers, so I'm not going to get likes like Liberty Lockdown got, but, you know, just to have a couple of people on a reply who were into this, I said, the worst part is that people, that there are people in this world, and this is a worldwide panic at this point, that believe that this was totally organic, and the only reason the world has a problem is because one man with a spray tan bungled the whole thing. And that is the thing that I hate about this. And we're sitting back. And, you know, I hinted towards this when we talked about Facebook and saying that they're allowing people to come out and say, oh yeah, no, this was totally a lab leak now. They're totally allowing people to say this. They got the political end that they wanted. And they got to accelerate some of the plans that I positive that they were trying to get under Hillary Clinton as well. They got to accelerate some of this back up to where it's the forefront. UBI, more government dependence, more destroyed jobs, getting rid of the oil jobs, putting a lot of coal miners out of business. They got to do all these things. Plus, they got rid of the orange man, the guy who came from the outside. And they have convinced people. This is the thing that I hate. They have convinced the general public that the only reason that they have any sort of strife in the world right now is because the orange man bungled this. In spite of the panic porn that they peddled for a year. The absolute fucking panic porn that they peddled through this. It's disgusting. And now they're just going to walk away from it and say, oh, well, never mind. Hey, no, if you want to talk about the Wuhan lab leak, go ahead, do it. So, that's what I saw from this. And Clint actually did reply back to this and said, mental illnesses for real, or mental illness rather for real. Yeah. You see, and you saw the agenda that they were trying to push through. And, read Agenda 21 sometime, Glenn Beck's book. I would never, ever advocate for you to read a Glenn Beck book, except for read that one. It's really good. And it really is, it tells you what they're trying to do with this. Lock you at home, get you out of commerce, keep you from driving, keep you from seeing family. Tear the binds down that bind our society, and then get you hooked on that government dole. Plus, get rid of the populist. That's the thing that I hate today. All right, let's get out of here, you guys. Let's go back and do this. Somebody's blowing up my Discord too, by the way. Holy shit. Somebody's blowing that up. Let's get out of here. Let's get everybody to work. Let's get me some breakfast and let's do this. Oh, I don't have to do the title card anymore. All right, so everybody who's watching here, if you haven't, or if you just lurked, get those last minute messages in so I can remember to thank you tomorrow for the live chat day. That's going to be tomorrow. So definitely looking forward to that. Always love thanking you guys for this, and we will see you tomorrow with more news, more contemporary, a whole bunch of stuff here. Probably won't get the new system started up for Monday's show because I might go up and see my parents over the holiday weekend. They're going to be at the halfway point again, so we might do that instead, but I'm definitely going to be starting to build this. Hey, I might start doing it tomorrow night too because, you know, working where I work, which is redacted, it is possible that I will be getting out early because of the holiday weekend tomorrow, so I might start putting this together tomorrow yet too. So we might start seeing some new stuff tomorrow, some of the new hardware tomorrow, or not tomorrow, but next week. Or we might still wait a couple weeks here. So we'll see what happens with this. I still have to get the OBS scene set up and everything too. So, well, we'll see where it goes. But we'll definitely see you tomorrow for more contemporary. And nothing over the weekend. Enjoy your holiday weekend. Enjoy your families. Otherwise, get those last minute messages in. We'll be back here tomorrow bright and early. Until then, I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary.